Submitted for your approval. Submitted for your approval.
Another dimension.
Light for your approval.
Another dimension.
Light for your
Shadow. Another dimension.
Light for your
Shadow. Another dimension.
self.
Light.
for your
Shadow. Another Twilight Zone.
Submitted for your approval.
The Twilight Zone.
Submitted for your approval.
The Twilight Zone.
Hello, hello, hello. You're listening to a podcast not only of sound but also of mind. It's Time to Rewind is a podcast that takes a journey into a wondrous land of time loops whose boundaries are that of imagination. I'm your host, Bubbawheat, and each episode my guest and I explore these time loops one loop at a time. This stop is Trapped in the Twilight Zone, and this is the 7th stop at 2020's Season 2, Episode 9, Try, starting at 26 minutes and 1 second with a morning montage, and ending at 26 minutes and 33 seconds, with Mark telling Claudia that she doesn't know how many iterations, how many tries, ... Here with me is my guest, Niall McGowan from Batminute. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm fine. Well, I mean, me and you're not aware of this, but this is like the 50th time I've recorded this episode with you. But yeah, hopefully it'll go better than like the 31st time was a disaster. But the 15th time though was great. But I'm hoping we can make it more like 15 rather than the 31st attempt.
Yeah, I think I'm guessing in one of those somehow I got hit by a truck, which I don't know how that happened.
And one of the ones that came out just took over the show. It's just like, what does it matter anyway? I mean, come on, just tomorrow we'll record the whole thing again. I mean, nothing matters anymore, man. You don't know what I'm going through over here.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to have you on because I can't say that I'm a longtime fan of Batminute. Like I've heard you guesting on other minute by minute shows, and then I finally started listening to Batminute whenever you started with Batman and Robin.
Yeah.
and I've been following.
And it's a hell of a one to jump in on, I guess.
Well, I mean, I don't know if you know this, but you know, on my primary blog, I've done written reviews of over 500 superhero and comic book movies. So
wow.
I've seen the best and the worst of them, and I think it's funny because like early on in my blogging career, which that site's been coming up on its 10th anniversary here in just next month, and there was like a blogging exercise. It was called like I can't think it was called, like 5 obstructions, that's what it was. And it was basically 5 blogging challenges, and one of them was to either write a negative review for a movie that you loved, or write a positive review for a movie that you don't like. And for that, I chose to write a positive review for Batman and Robin.
Ah, and was it did it bring you round to the movie in any way? I'm like, now that I think about it in this way, maybe it is great.
And not exactly. I think every time, it's been a while since I've seen that movie, but every time I watch it, it's like, you know, I'm going to have some campy fun with it. And then I think about halfway through, it's like, oh, this campiness is just completely worn its welcome with me.
I think it's actually that we've got the benefit of doing it minute by minute actually improves the movie. Because you don't get that lull. Because I know exactly what you're talking about. When you watch the beginning of it, like, oh, this is crazy, crappy fun. This is, amazing. And then you get to, like, minute 70, and it's just like, oh, my God. And then you're like, it's like an hour left. And you're like, how is there an hour left of this? Jesus Christ. But doing it, like, 3 minutes a week, the way we record, it's all good. Because you're rejuvenated every time you go towards it. So you're able to be like, no, this is all. In the middle of the film, you're like, no, there's still things to enjoy here as well. But, yeah, it's been a different experience for me in particular because it is the one of the movies I like the least. And, you know, to go from like the giddy heights of Batman 89 and Returns and stuff. And like, I have so much love for Batman Forever as well. Adored doing that season because there's so much to talk about with Batman Forever. Like, it's just every episode was just drenched in just like, oh, there's so much behind the scenes stuff. And there's so much, you know, the movie that they tried to make that they didn't end up doing and stuff. And, you know, now we're in the middle of the whole release the Schumacher cut saga. And I can tell you, like, if people want to see the Schumacher cut, it's essentially out there already. Like, it's just the deleted scenes that are readily available on the internet. There's not much more than that. But But yeah, Batman and Robin has been like, whew, it's, you just really have to try to find like what angle to go with this thing from, because it's just like, in one hand it is so well produced and so well designed, and it's just like, it's trying to be so much fun. And the other half is just like, you get yourself into a positive mindset of it. And then the other half is like, but it is garbage as well. Like, in terms of just a structural screenwriting standpoint, the amount of times I found myself going like, well, this just isn't even well put together as a film. Like, not in terms of like, oh, it's so goofy. It's just more like, no, just in terms of like, how does this make sense in any kind of plot? You know, when you were mapping this out, you could just tell they're like, it doesn't matter. Just go ahead. Just do whatever. Like, no one cares anymore.
Yeah, I think the two big things that I remember about it is the rubber ice that you can see wiggling in a lot of shots, and the fact that they give this extremely heavy and well done plot for Alfred, which is completely out of place with the rest of the movie.
Oh yeah. The thing is, there's some great scenes between him and Bruce Wayne. Like, really, like, there's scenes of like, if it was Michael Keaton doing those scenes with Michael Goff, or Go. No, Goff. Sorry. I forget myself sometimes. Those would have been so heavy hitting, and they still kind of work in the movie, but it is like, you're just gone from like,
it's like total whiplash.
Yeah, you've gone from vampy, campy, Mae West, Poison Ivy, just hamming it up over here, and with her like, Gimp Bane by her side, and crazy neon lighting everywhere, and then the next scene is just like, you're dying, old friend, and I know, Master Bruce. It's like, what the hell is this? Whiplash just watching this thing. Although I do have it under good authority, Joel Schumacher actually made it while he was stuck in a time loop, and he thought that this was one of the movies that wasn't going to take. Like, he actually made a really good version of Batman and Robin somewhere within like the 100-odd years he was trapped in the time loop. But then apparently this was the one that ended up getting released.
Yeah, I could imagine that, and I think it's funny. I already kind of laid out how I had this montage structured, and I'm already completely going out of order. But I'm gonna.
It's okay. We'll just record it again tomorrow. It's fine. Yeah.
But I did want to ask you about your thoughts on this episode as a whole. Like, did you ever catch any of the other Jordan Peele Twilight Zone episodes before this?
I remember when it came back, I was actually quite excited. Just at the idea of like, oh, a new Twilight Zone. And then for whatever reason, after the first few episodes, I just kind of lost my way with it. I think I just remember because, the way the Twilight Zone, particularly more modern ones, they're always so hit and miss. Mm-hmm. So, like, I'll get really hyped for, like, oh, Annalee Amirpour is doing an episode. And it's like, oh, Stephen Yeun and then Greg Kinnear and everyone's going to be in. It's like, oh, it's going to be amazing. And then you watch it and it's like, no, it's one of the duds. And you're like, oh, God damn it. And so you just have to, it was this thing of just like every week not knowing if you're going to get a good or a bad one.
Yeah, I think the first season was a bit more hit and miss, and then the second season was stronger.
Oh, okay. So maybe I'll try to go back now start with season 2 and go on from there. Because at least one of the benefits I guess at least is that there's no story arc. It's like, yeah, you can hop in whenever. But no, but this episode was new to me. And the thing is, I actually wonder now, because if knowing what the show, like what your show was coming onto it, I wonder if it spoiled the twist for me. Because as I was watching it, within like the first 30 seconds, I was like, oh, he's stuck on a time loop. And we're going at it from a different angle than normal. And I wonder if, would I have known that had I not known I was going on a time loop show? Or would it have been like, whoa, that's crazy. I never saw that coming. But I think as soon as he started to just, like, within the second or third thing that he knew that he shouldn't have known, it was like, oh, he's in a time loop. Oh, I get it. And that he's lived this 1,000 times already and stuff. Yeah,
I think the first big hint is whenever he catches the water bottle.
Yeah. Although Topher Grace does always have a great, he does good, like, unsettling, like, nice guy thing. Because he's done it before. Like, he did, in Predators, at the end of that movie, it turned out like he was, like, the villain. And you're like, oh, God, because there's Topher Grace, you always think he's so gawky and weird and stuff. Like, oh, he's not going to be, he's Eric Foreman, he's fine. But then he does have a weird thing of, like, he plays unsettling nice guy very well, where it's just like, you realize there's so much more darkness going on under the bland veneer of, just sort of nervous, wholesome sort of fellow. But no, he's actually like a nut job underneath.
Yeah, I actually like listening to Spider-Man Minute and them going through Spider-Man 3. It did increase my appreciation for his Eddie Brock. And I like their theory that he should be like basically Nega Peter Parker.
Yeah.
And he plays that role really well, but then they just kind of throw everything to the wind at the very end and screw it all up.
Yeah. I was actually on that season of Spider-Man Minute with some Eddie Brock minutes, like way back when, and it was one of those ones of like, yeah, you just have, like, I get what you're going for here with the whole, like, he's Peter Parker, but he's flipped. The only thing that did for me when the movie came out was like, oh, Topher Grace should have played Peter Parker. He would have been really good at that. Like, we had a way to rewind back time and do the Sam Raimi trilogy again. It's like, I would have cast Topher Grace instead of Tobey Maguire, because I think he's more classic Peter Parker-y to me than, because Tobey Maguire's just like, oh, he played great dork. That was his, angle on the character. And there is, classic elements of Spider-Man that are like that. But I grew up with, like, the 90s cartoon, where I was like, oh, he's a smart aleck. Like, that's Spider-Man's whole thing. He's a snarky smart aleck. And that's what Eric Foreman is. Yeah. And that's what Topher Grace is, almost in his real life, really. Like, you see him, I remember I saw a great response I think he did on Reddit recently, where someone asked him, like, are you in Spider-Man No Way Home? And he was like, yep, I'm in it. Me and Tom Hardy have a big fight. And of course I win, naturally. And he just went into this whole really well-written troll response where it started off like you could kind of almost believe it. And then it just got progressively weirder and weirder as it went on. I was like, oh, no, this guy, he has the Spidey in him. I think he could totally pull off that part. But this episode, though, I did enjoy. Although I think it ends a bit flat. Like, I don't know what you thought of, like, because the climax feels very like, that was it. Like, there was nothing more to this. Like, it was not so much that there wasn't much more to it. It was just seems like it was very resolved very quickly. And, the ending of him so spotting her and then going like, nah, I'm not going to do that anymore and walking away just seems a bit weak. It was a bit like, you didn't have anything else you could have done there to spice up to make more of an impact rather than him just realizing, oh, she had always kicked my ass if I tried anything, so.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of liked it. I kind of liked it. It was him just, like, limping away.
Yeah.
And I think that fits for how they presented his character as a whole in this episode. And, I watched it I with my wife and my 15-year-old daughter the first time. And, that moment at the end, whenever she just punches him in the nose, like they were both pumped at that point.
Yeah. Oh, I was glad to see him getting a comeuppance of sorts. It just felt like it was going to be there's going to be twistier, that they would have done something like you wouldn't have seen coming, rather than her just been like telling him to piss off, and then he does. Like, I just felt it very like, oh, I guess that is a way. It's a way to end it, I suppose.
So one other thing that I was curious, and I'm curious to see your take on it. I knew that you came into this knowing that it was a time loop episode, but at what point did you feel like Mark was like a more villainous character? Like, when did you start getting the dark, creepy vibes? Do you remember at what point in that episode that he turned for you?
I think because it was actually quite early on. Because it became apparent that he was just manipulating things when he was dropping little hints of like, oh, you've said that before, or we've done this already. In the back of my mind, I was already thinking like, that's messed up though, that he's manipulating events to get her to do stuff. And it's like, so from there on, and then knowing again also within the context of what the show is, it's like, well, it's Twilight Zone. It'd be shocking. It'd be more shocking if he was a good guy, quite frankly. So, I was very like sort of, keeping the guy at arm's length from the get go. Cause it's like, I don't know. And plus, just in the modern times when this, the this feels like a very modern episode of the Twilight Zone because it's bringing up issues that have been like made much more public. You know, it's about, you know, like white male privilege and his entitlement to this woman and stuff like that. And, you know, the quote unquote nice guy thing where he's like, I'm a nice guy. I deserve, you know, you basically, like you should now fall over yourself to please me because I've been nice to you and stuff. So I kind of got a sense that was what it was going to be about from like very early on. It's like, yeah, I can't see this going well with the whole idea that this guy is manipulating a woman into doing whatever he wants. It just has an ickiness from the get-go.
Yeah, and that actually ties into, you know, today's loop, because this is the scene where Claudia confronts Mark and tells him that he's tricking her into liking him.
Yes, yeah. And the thing is, because I know you've gone through Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
And it's almost like a meta commentary, like, you know, 30 years later on Groundhog Day, where like you watch Bill Murray from his point of view doing that to Andie MacDowell, like, you know, and it was presented in that film of like, oh, you know, it was a nice, he's just trying to win her heart. Like, it is like, well, just consider that from another angle. He is just puppeteering someone into liking him out of nowhere. It's like, yeah, it is very, very messed up.
Yeah, this episode, it's like, it's basically like the last loop of his first attempt at a date with Rita from Rita's point of view. Yeah.
And it's I didn't think it was quite it's a good idea for an episode though to do, like, because the time loop thing is so known now throughout culture. Like, you know, Star Trek's done a time loop episode and Doctor Who's done a time loop. You know, people know what the thing. Like, it's become a genre onto itself now, really.
Yeah, I mean, so much so that, you know, this entire podcast, like, I don't think I'm ever going to run out of, you know, movies and TV episodes to cover.
Yeah, and I'm glad we're at a point now where people just know what it is, where you can mess around with it. Like, so you got something like, you know, Palm Springs last year, where it was like, oh yeah, now we're stuck in a time loop together. And there's this guy who's been after me trying to kill me because I accidentally got him stuck in the time loop as well. And, you know, that kind of thing. Like, and the idea of them coming around to this is like, oh, just, it's a time loop. But like, what if you were Rita? Like, what if we're seeing it from her point of view where like this guy just appears and like, he seems like he just has this godly knowledge of everything. Even though you've never seen it before in your life. And then afterwards, all he can think about is, it does a very good job of getting into those concepts of, you understand his mentality because we've seen time loop movies so much. Like, again, that's like Groundhog Day, where it's implied that he's killed himself many times and it keeps coming back. Mm-hmm. And he's literally and he's just gone beyond the pale now, and we can kind of understand, like, where, you know, he's so focused on himself. Like, you understand things from my point of view. And yet now but like, she also is a normal person who she will get to see tomorrow. So it's kind of like just trying to get away from this guy while just leave him stuck in today and then move on, because I still have a life to lead. I'm not just going to disappear, because presumably in every other time loop, in any other scenario, the people of those days, they don't just disappear into the ether. Like, they still have their own side dimension where they just go on living the rest of their life and stuff. But,
it's like
do they?
The infinite parallel universes where each one of his days is splitting off into its own little universe where all the little differences that he's done goes on and causes, you know, ripples in those different people's lives, and they lead slightly different lives from that point on.
Yeah. You always wonder in those scenarios where, like, he's trapped in the time loop, but then the next day, which he meets another version of Topher Grace, who is still continuing on, but it's just that a certain version of him is stuck in the time loop? Or is he like, no, he just disappears from the face of the earth because he's still stuck in the same day? And then everyone else will be like, yeah, that guy just vanished. Like, he was here one day. He was here for like his entire life, and then one day he just vanished. Or if it would be like, no, it's just the certain, like, section of him or a part of his soul or whatever that's stuck in the time loop, but his physical entity will continue on in parallel dimensions every time, you know, it resets. But No one's done that. I don't think anyone's done that as a time loop one. Maybe that's a new angle to go at the get the script right. Get the script software fired up. We might be onto a winner here.
Yeah, the other way to look at it is that, everybody in the entire world is stuck in the time loop with him, and they're all repeating the day, but they're just not aware of it.
Yeah. And so it's like literally like the Earth has stopped revolving. Like it just keeps moving ever so slightly backwards every time. It reloops and stuff. And then it'll be like, is it just the Earth or is it the entire fabric of reality?
Yeah, it's tough to say.
Yeah.
But the only other thing I have for this loop is Mark also says that this has all been for her, and I feel like that doesn't really prove his point because he's not really becoming a different person for her. Like, he's not really changing himself. He's just feeding her different answers, and again, like she says, just tricking her.
Yeah. I think I've got thoughts on it because I think that's actually a good example of what the crux of this montage is. It's like his various different but pretty much the same answer, or kind of a dead giveaway of how little this guy's actually willing to change to compromise for her. Even though he does say, like, this is for you, like, I'm doing this for you. But at the end, like, no, he's not. He's doing it for him. Like, he's just trying to butter her up so he can get what he wants out of it, rather than actually any genuine attempt to please her in any way. But
yeah, and I've got some more thoughts on that, but I'm going to save it for a little bit later.
Yeah, of course. I will just say though, because if anyone who listens to Batminute or has heard me in other shows might know, I'm a massive fan of when someone says the title in a movie, and the fact that he's just like, there's so many tries, and I'm like, so close. Just to try, just say that. First you don't succeed. Try. Topher Grace turning to the camera. Try again. He just he almost says it and he just doesn't say it. But yeah, I do like the little sinister connotations though, like him because obviously they have that try again is in reference to that phrase, and he does have the whole thing of like, well, makes perfect, makes you perfect. Like he's. Yeah, it's taking well-known idioms and turning them into something very unsettling. Like, because he is trying to make her perfect, I guess, or he's trying to make himself seem perfect for her.
Yeah,
and therefore, because he's just decided that, like, it's so many questions to do with that too. That like the idea that he thinks he's making himself perfect for her, but he's also, crafting a persona.
Well, I think that he's deluded himself, that he thinks that she is the perfect person for him, and that means that he's the perfect person for her. And so he's just changing and altering all these things, and I think he doesn't even realize exactly what he's doing.
It is really weird. Yeah, the fact he's decided that she's the perfect person for him, and you think at any point the fact that he's had to do this like a million times with Clue, and it's like, maybe you people don't have the chemistry you're hoping for. Maybe she's not perfect for you, man. And maybe like you should just let this one go. But he's just decided like, no, this is like, this woman is mine now, and I have latched onto her. Or not even so much that. It's like, you could, at least you could, keep wanting to go out with her, but don't try to, literally craft it to be a perfect thing, because no one, so few people are going to have like be perfectly in sync with each other. But that's not what a relationship is. Like, you have to sort of have differences and have compromises and things like that. But I mean, that'll be all stuff we can talk about throughout the rest of the montage as well.
And then if he does get out of the time loop, like, how does he handle the rest of the relationship without having all this time to prepare for each day?
Well, that's the thing, yeah. Because then the next day he'd be just like, she'll mention something else that just go, that didn't come up in the time loop. Now this is completely new information to me. God damn.
And then for each of these episodes here in this this Jordan Peele section, I made the decision that I'm going to bring up a classic Twilight Zone episode that I'd never seen. Well, some of them I've seen, but to give me a chance to explore more of the classic Twilight Zone. So for this episode, I decided to watch A Game of Pool, which was recommended to me. And this is, it stars Jack Klugman and Jonathan Winters. And Jack Klugman plays this like pool shark he's basically dedicated his life to becoming good at pool because he previously wasn't good at anything else. But he always dreams that he wished that he could challenge this great all-time great pool player, Fats. And
they're always called Fats. They don't call me Springfield Fats because I'm morbidly obese. So I just have to get a Simpsons reference into every guest spot as well.
Yeah, there's no fit Tony. All the stress. But he proclaims to the heavens that he wished that he could challenge Fats to one game of pool to show that he could beat him. And then it cuts to heaven, and it's like, Fats, you have a challenger. And so Fats as a ghost comes and challenges him to a game of pool. And it's a style of pool that has kind of gone out of fashion. It's basically, all the balls are up for grabs, and basically you sink as many as you can until you miss, and then it's the other person's. And then once you get to the last ball on the table, then they re-rack all the other 14 balls, and you just keep going until you get to a certain number of balls sunk, and in this case it's 300. So it's first to sinking 300 balls. And then the episode ends with them being 297 to 299, and Jack Klugman only needs to sink 1 ball, and Jonathan Winters has to sink 4. And Jack Klugman misses an easy shot. And then Fats sinks the next 3, so it's tied up, and then he misses the last shot. And it goes back and forth, and then the twist of the episode is that Jack Klugman wins, but then after he dies, he keeps getting called back from heaven for all these other challengers.
So by winning, he's actively set Jonathan Winters free, because he was kind of doomed to have to meet challengers for the rest of the eternity, because everyone wants to beat the best. So he's like, oh, for Christ's sake. But although the thing is, in that scenario, you think, wouldn't you just fake lose from the word go? If you're told you have to spend eternity now defending your pool title, would you just be 2 or 3 games in, you'd be just like, oops, look like I lost that one. It's like, I'll see you. Good luck, kid.
Well, I think that's, you get the impression that that's what Jonathan Winters' character does, but he doesn't make it obvious.
Oh, I see. I thought it might have been some sort of thing of the God or whoever behind the scenes will be like, we'd know if you have to do it genuinely. If you don't do it genuinely, then you go to hell or something like that. So it has to be a genuine win rather than just been like, whoopsie, oh, it looks like I missed that shot. Oh, good luck. See ya.
Yeah, it does seem like that at the end, because it feels like he does miss a relatively easy shot towards the end. But what's great about this is the conversation between the two of them. And it's, and it's 2 great actors, Jack Klugman and Jonathan Winters. And it's rare because it's Jonathan Winters he plays it straight. There's almost no comedy from his end. He plays it completely straight, and he does a great job at it too.
I think it was one I did see. Is my familiarity with a lot of the Twilight Zone is particularly the classic ones, because it just wasn't on TV when I was growing up. It was a concept I knew of, because the Twilight Zone movie would be the closest you'd get to it, because that was on all the time. And there was a thing I always wanted to see, because I was just I love the idea of that. I'm like, oh yeah, and every week you get a really weird, slightly unpredictable, very twisty horror story or a sci-fi story or whatever. And, and then it'll leave you with a profound, oh, at the end every time.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just, it was never on. And then as I was growing up, you get the 90s version would be on, or with Forrest Whitaker is in it now and stuff like this. And it was never as good. But then when I was in university and stuff, we used to make a point of every Sunday people will be like, because it's university, people will be out partying on a Saturday night. But then the Sunday, people just like kind of lie around and try to recover. And it used to be put on Twilight Zone. It was me and my friend Steve. He said, like, yep, this got fired up. And we just had access to it now through, not streaming, but like, you could buy DVD sets of it relatively free, not free, relatively cheaply and stuff. So yeah, a lot of it was just like, it was fond memories of sitting around watching like old black and white Twilight Zones, like most Sundays and stuff. But yeah, so it was a lot of them. When you presented me with the list of things episodes you're going to talk about, I was like, oh yeah, I know that one. Like I remember that one just like just literally from the title. We're like, oh yeah, that one rings a clear bell. Because when they hit, that's the thing with Twilight Zone. When they hit, you never forget them. Like it's not like something that's like, oh, I think I vaguely remember. It's like, no. It's always a very concise and very like, impactful idea that will stay with you like, forever after you see it, basically.
I think for me, the ones that I get confused with is there's like several of them that deal with time in the title, and I get mixed up with which one is which. Yeah.
But I mean, like now, I guess now you have time. Although that's a reference to another episode, I guess we might be talking about later in the week.
Yeah, but I think we've gone on a bit longer than we expected to for this one, but and we've got a lot more of this montage to cover. But so for anyone else, why don't you go ahead and let everybody know where they can find you online?
Oh yeah, well you get me like at anything to do with Batminute. Batminute's a show where we're analyzing the Batman films from 1989 onwards, minute by minute. And at this point, like the time of recording here, we're hurtling towards the end of covering Batman and Robin. So we'll finish that 90s live action set very soon. And it's a good old time. You can find that on Twitter, just Batminute. On Instagram, I think it's the Batminutes. And we have the Batminute Listeners Cave on Facebook, where you can just pop in and talk about the show or talk about anything slightly related to Batman at all. If you got some information about like an old Michelle Pfeiffer movie you want to talk about, throw it in there. That's what it's there for, So hop on over.
And as always, I am Bubbawheat, and you can find me at flightstitesandmovienights.com. You can find me on Twitter at Bubbawheat, and you can find this show, It's Time to Rewind, on Anchor.fm, as well as anywhere else where you can listen to podcasts. And we also have a Facebook group, It's Time to Rewind, a time loop group, and you can come in there and talk about all things time loop related. And until next time, I will still be right here, trapped in the Twilight Zone.
Submitted for your approval. Submitted for your approval.
Another dimension.
So light for your approval.
Another dimension.
So light for your
Shadow. Another dimension.
So light for your
Shadow. Another dimension. Self.
So light for your
Shadow. Another Twilight Zone.
Submitted for your approval.
The Twilight Zone.
Submitted for your approval.
The Twilight Zone.
You have no way of knowing how much work I put into this, how many iterations, all the tries.